We'll just sign some more agreements and there will be peace. This was all a complete illusion. Ask the arms control experts about this and they will not be able to tell you about it.
In January of 2019, the Trump administration announced that it will be ending a decades-old arms treaty with Russia. The 1987 Cold War-era Intermediate-Range Nuclear Forces Treaty, the INF Treaty, intended to prevent Russia and the United States from possessing, producing, or conducting test flights of ground-launched cruise and ballistic missiles with a range of 500 to 5,500 kilometers. The Trump administration justified the decision by accusing Moscow of violating the treaty with impunity. The point was also made that since the treaty was signed, China's military has grown significantly, and the INF Treaty prevents the United States from developing weapons systems and technology to counter weapons developed in Beijing. In part 2 of the BL's In Great Minds series, Understanding Communism, Dr. John Lunchowski explains how the communist strategy is to gain the advantage.
One of the symptoms was the arms race. And both sides were building up their armed forces. Principally, it was the Soviet Union doing it. We signed our arms agreements with them. The first major one was the SALT Agreement and the ABM Treaty of 1972. And between 1972 and 1979, the Soviets deployed 5 to 7, depending upon how you count them, new intercontinental nuclear delivery systems. We deployed no new intercontinental nuclear delivery systems. The Soviets were violating essentially, they made technical violations of the agreements, they violated the spirit of the agreement, and it was clear that they would build up their arms, and we used the arms control process to unilaterally restrain ourselves from acquiring arms. Then finally, they achieved such a tremendous amount of military strength that we felt compelled to start building up our arms. They invaded Afghanistan in 1979, and President Carter woke up and he admitted publicly in a television interview that he learned more about Soviet goals in the last 4 days of that Soviet invasion than he had learned in the previous years of his presidency. Well, excuse me, I think he should have learned this when he was at the Naval Academy and not in on-the-job training as the president. If people thought that we could really reach genuine peace with the Soviet Union by signing arms control agreements, then why should people want to support new submarines, new nuclear missiles, more modern army equipment, new aircraft? Why should they support any of that stuff? We'll just sign some more agreements and there will be peace and we'll all live happily ever after. Well, excuse me, this was all a complete illusion. The problem with arms control is it is attempting to create peace and strategic stability by addressing a symptom of tension rather than the cause of tension. And the fact of the matter is that you cannot reduce tensions by reducing arms. You reduce tensions by reducing political concerns. And what are the concerns? The concerns are an aggressive, tyrannical regime that has killed more people than were killed in the wars. In the arms control process, we abided by the arms control treaties. We lived, we followed the law, so to speak. The Soviet Union didn't. They violated every one of the treaties they signed. They circumvented every one of the treaties they signed. They exploited the possibilities within the bounds of the treaty to maximize their military preparations. They had a strategy to violate arms control agreements. They didn't just violate them, they had a strategy to do so. ask the experts on arms control in this country about this. They can't tell you anything about that strategy. Why did the Soviets violate the agreements? The multiple purposes. Perhaps the obvious reason was to gain incremental military advantages. But there are other important reasons. One was to test our intelligence capabilities. If they revealed an illegal missile, and we then come and complain to them about it a few weeks later, they have a good idea how we learned about it. They know where our satellites are flying, but they may not know what the full capacities are of our satellites. If the satellite is flying directly over the missile, they know very easily that the satellite took a photograph of that missile. But let's say the satellite was flying very far away and if that satellite took a photograph of the illegal missile, it would be done at a 15-degree angle. Okay? Well, maybe they were testing to see what the capabilities of that satellite and our photographic intelligence capabilities were. Well, by violating the agreement and then having us reveal that we knew about their violation, they have just tested the effectiveness of our intelligence capabilities, and they now have the capacity to improve their ability for maskirovka. And maskirovka, which relates to the word mask, has to do with denial and deception, where they can camouflage their illegal military activities in a way that is more effective now that they know what our capabilities are. Ask the arms control experts about this, and they will not be able to tell you about it because they don't even want to know about this. They don't want to know about it because it interferes with the utopian view that arms control will contribute to peace. And it doesn't. It doesn't. It just perpetuates a completely imperfect relationship, and it does not reduce tensions at all.
Communist regimes throughout history have never played by the rules. From oppressing its own people to manipulating its position in the world, communism prevents the private sector from developing innovations that benefit society. When there is no free market to develop technology, then the regime must obtain it in any way it can, from forcing its citizens to produce against their will, to violating treaties and stealing intellectual properties. For communism, it's all about the advantage, not the rule of law. Don't miss part 3 of the BL's In Great Minds series, Understanding Communism. Dr. John Lanchowski talks about how communism imposes self-censorship in the U.S. For the BL, I'm Rich Crankshaw with In Great Minds.